All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Free Friday Coaching Call. This call happens the first and third Fridays of each month. It's been going on for years, and for those of you that may be joining it for the first time, my name is Casey Council Jiha. I live in Pacific Grove, California, which is in the Monterey Bay, where my late husband, Rick Jiha, and I lived until he passed last year. And so for those of you that knew him or that didn't know him, he spent 43 years at the highest level in this industry as a top producer, speaker, trainer, coach. He was an amazing man. And everywhere he'd go and train, he'd give out his cell phone number and he would tell people, call me, I don't care what you need. And people would call him and, everything from dating advice to real estate advice and everything in between. And so he set up this call to be able to have a conversation that would be industry specific to people in real estate that wanted to continue to learn and grow and focus on two things: improving their mindset and their skill set to stay relevant and positioned ahead of where the industry was going to be going. And so we've kept this call going in his legacy and memory. And what we've done is pulled in some of the most incredible people that have results over a period of time in their careers, things that they are preaching only what they practice, not what they've learned sitting in some class, and bringing that to you for you to be able to skill up and really position in a beautiful way moving forward. So we're excited to have all of you on the call. It is recorded, and these are, Selena will go ahead at some point and put the recording link of where you can find all of the recordings for the past Free Friday coaching calls on different topics with different speakers. However, today's guest, I am super excited to have on this call. I know she's been on it before. She was on it with Rick. However, she has not been on it with me. So we're going to have some fun today. What I love about Terri Murphy is that she brings it 100%.
Yeah.
And she's got 30 years in this industry, 24 as a top performing salesperson in the Chicago area. She's an author. She's brilliant at communications and leadership. I mean, her resume goes on and on. For those of you that actually looked at the promotional material for today's call, I'm not sure if you'll be more excited about learning about how you as an individual agent without a team can list and sell 100 homes in a year, or bring romance to your business. However, I think we're going to cover both things today. And so excited to jump in. Terri, welcome to our call.
Well, thank you for that fun introduction. I just hope I can live up to it. Just so when you said that many years in the industry, I just want to show you that I have one of the original lock boxes. It's moldy, it's icky, but the hard part was to remember the combination. And yes, we had running water, but I'm just saying it was a different time in real estate, and I think that's an advantage and a disadvantage. So today we're going to talk about some of the basics that work, because I walk the talk and I love listing. And by the way, just between us, I couldn't stand having buyers in my car. It was like they'd complain about, oh, it's only one bathroom. Oh, shut up. I'm one of 9 kids. I was happy to have one that worked,
I love that. I love that. Well, I know today we're gonna hit on 3 different conversation items. I know you like to keep things conversational. For those of you that didn't catch the promo video, those 3 things are: what is the listing and buyer presentation that is going to help you win in the market of 2025 and beyond? Because what worked before is not going to work in the same way moving forward. The second topic that we're going to cover is how to pump up your prospecting in a new way that you've not done before. So we're excited to do that. And then of course, this idea of romancing your business. I mean, that sounds kind of fun. So where do you want to start, Terri?
Well, let's just start with mindset. You just said the word, and we just said that, by the way, in our coaches call, because all of us is smarter than one of us. So it's not, this is not the listing process according to Murph. It's what works. And I have the privilege of being a master coach and having worked with Rick for a long time. That how you think and how you limit yourself is one thing. And I really wanted to list. And I came into a business, I was clueless. I mean, I had to learn to drive a car because walking people from house to house was just so tiresome and cold in Chicago. I mean, I started with Zip. And I'm telling you that because you have to learn when when you burn the boats, you have to learn. And so the mindset was really important. And I was just telling Selena a little background. When I started in the business, I started in a company called Applegate. And this is before all the merging started. And we had to buy apples. We had to spend $13.26. They billed us every month for apples that were in the back room. And so people would come in and ask for an apple. It was our little premium. But here, the interest rates were like some of your age. And it was like, oh my God, nobody was buying or selling. And I thought, well, I've got to do something to brand myself. This is a different kind of branding. So every Saturday, except during like December and January, I would get up early, run with a whole bunch of apples and put an apple in my cart on everybody's door in my farm area. It was about 227 houses. And I was like locked down hot on who sold, what model they were, how many sold. I mean, days on the market, I was insane. But I did it every Saturday through the fall. And then I'd follow it up with applegrams with information and apple recipes and apple pies for the people that had the best decorations. So they kind of knew who I was. And then another woman named Terri would call before I could get home and shower and go, hi, I'm Terri. How'd you like that apple? Oh, oh, please, right? So I started to have to pre-position myself for listings. And I created a pre-appointment package before it was just all company stuff. But I realized early that having bought my first house without heat in the water, not knowing that it didn't have heat and it was on the river, but in the river every April, I knew there were questions that agents didn't, or sellers didn't know to ask. So I set them up. I set them up with a questionnaire, how to interview your agent, the 5 things you need to know, but didn't tell them, what those were. Why staging? This is long before we had staging. And the kinds of things like giving them 3 options for painters and all the kinds of things that people didn't know to ask when they were going to market their home. And I would deliver that in person if I could with a little box of apples. So they had a whole experience about who I was before I got there. So my question is for you. We have to up our game. If you've been in the business, just show of hands, how many people have only been in the business the last 5 to 10 years? Oh, you baby, you probably still like people in houses, don't you? Thank you, Martin. Yeah, so it's a new game, kids, and it's not about bribing them with things, but it is about creating an experience before you get there. And so they have way more tools to compare us. They have the internet, they have all this false advertising, they have crazy videos. What do they really want? What do you think? Just put it up in the chat or say it. What do y'all think they want besides the highest price for their house for the lowest commission? What do you think? I know Julie and Bernie know this. Nobody
Somebody
wants.
who cares about them.
Yeah, they want to be heard. They don't know the process. They are right now in fear because of the DOJ thing, and there's lots of misinformation out there. Your goal is to be one of the best communicators and leaders in this process. And I got to tell you, one time I was so excited to walk into a house. It was new construction. They didn't have the streets in. There was mud everywhere. And I walked into this house and I went, just nailed it. I was just walked in. I went, so I love your carpet and I love this and I love that. And she said, finally, after about 10 minutes, she goes, we're not selling, it's our neighbor. So I had gone into the wrong house, but I was so excited about all the positives. I'm going to tell you to start listening. Active listening skills are 8 of them. So before you start pointing out, the dog mess in the corner and the icky entranceway, sit down and find out what they want before you start selling everything like the CMA. And let's get into that, the competitive market analysis. I mean, come on, we all have to do that. We have to kind of give relevance to where they would be in the marketing plan.
Yeah.
But you have to do way more than that.
Yeah. So you've pointed out a couple of things so far that I want to reiterate to make sure people caught them. You said one thing that kind of slid in there, and if people weren't paying attention, they probably missed it. You said, when you burn the boats, you have a mindset where you're all in. And then you went on to describe this process of creating an experience of basically pre-selling or pre-marketing yourself before you're ever met. And I think that is such an important mindset piece, because it is human nature to go, well, I'm going to do this and see how it works. Or, I'm going to give it 6 months, or I'm going to give it a year, or yes, I want to, build a career in real estate. However, I have, this going on in the background and that going on in the background. So, if it doesn't actually work the way I want it to, I've still got this. This is a very different mindset than I've burned the boats, the ships are gone. It is sink or swim, and I'm Terri Murphy, so I'm not sinking. So how do I go swim? Right. And I think that if that one piece everybody really gets anchored in their minds, where you draw a line in the sand, you make a decision. Many people have heard it so many times that anything that ends with side, suicide, homicide, pesticide, death, making a decision is death to all other options. And you decide, like, you know what, I'm going to be a pro in this industry, and to do that I'm going to go all in. And so getting people thinking about that being the foundation of their mindset, and then now, okay, we're going to layer on how we create an experience so that people that don't know you before they know you, and the process to build from there. So I just want to make sure everybody caught that before we roll into more of the meat on the potatoes.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have to keep up, kids, because I've had a lot of this today. Okay, I'm in Chicago. I've already had two pots, so buckle up.
All right.
Chicago style. Well, yeah. So that's really an important thing. We don't listen, and I know that 81% of companies. I'm obsessed with how people connect, as you mentioned, Casey, and I have to work with people who don't want to hear things, and so I am intentional about connection in the most authentic way. And listening is one of the biggest. And as salespeople, we want to dump content. We want to tell them how many homes have sold, all of the differentiators there. But what that experience that I just described is that's the differentiator, because 81% of companies say that the customer experience was the deciding factor, not the investment of the cost. So what kind of experience are you now providing when you go on a listing presentation? And we just talked about this a few minutes ago, and Julie and Bernie and Selena were there, about how old is that thing? I mean, are you still going into like 8x10 glossy photos? Are you just being industrial instead of relational? And I'm going to tell you that when you can quit what I call quick speak, what's going on in their particular zip code. They don't really care what's happening in all of Atlanta. They just want to know what's happening in one zip code, because that's their hood. And so can you quick speak the number of transactions that have happened in that year, the percentages from listing to a sold value, the days on the market, the river of real estate, which is what we have in our coaching program, that really tells them this isn't your first rodeo. Even if you're brand new, Martin, even if you're brand new, it gives them the option that you have behind the scenes the credibility, so they can create the trust. So I'm going to tell you, what has always been working is not working anymore. It's more about the pre-positioning. It's about when you get there being totally confident. And I'm going to tell you, it's a show, it's a presentation. It's like a program when you go into someone's home. And how you dress, what are the distractions? Is that cell phone going? I mean, we call it phubbing. Stop doing anything but focusing on that. Know so much, be so deep, deeper than they know. We just had a client that called, her mom had passed. She was one of my past clients. This is like 35 years later. And she said, well, the house down the street sold for a lot more money. Yeah, and it was smaller. You're right. Here's something you should know. And then she showed the pictures, the visuals of the condition of that house. And this house is trashed. So, people, it's a price war and a beauty contest out there. So you've really got to be able to quick speak that information. That would be the number one. The second thing is they have an issue about once they sign. It's sort of like, once you sign, can you get out of the contract because you're not doing what you promised? And so then there's that social proof. And yeah, there's testimonials. There is credibility with how many you've sold, but how you couch that to me is not, well, I sold 100 homes. Well, did you actually sell them, or were they listings sold? And what was our process for this relationship? If you don't want to hear from me, when are those days? One of the days that we can face-to-face connect, and we stay with the integrity of that. I mean, especially, I love divorces, by the way. I used to call people and ask them if they were happy, if you needed listings, because you get lots of transactions out of that. I'm kidding, of course. Debbie, lighten up. I'm just kidding.
Partially, you're partially kidding.
Yeah, I did. Hey, are you happy? Because then you get two transactions. But here, if they're not talking to each other, they'll play the realtor. So what are you doing to, with full integrity, to get that feedback, to tell them about the showings, to show them what people are saying about the property? We have to do this in presentation skills. Did you know that the kohlrabi is a problem when you make it the day before and we're showing the property? If people don't like that, and that's a very interesting vegetable, Claire gets it. Yeah, so I mean, that whole upsell for what's going to happen in this relationship. More importantly, what do you want to happen in this relationship? And then you have to be able to have the empathy factor, which, by the way, is disappearing. Casey, it's going to be tough for you to keep the house in showing model every day. Let's talk about times that are impossible for you to show so that we know. Let's talk about what your motivation, where are you going? The worst thing you can do is to try and market a property where they are mildly motivated and you invest all this time and money and energy when you could be helping someone else. Make sense?
It does. And the talk track, let's talk about, invites into a conversation that isn't a yes or no, that will allow a spectrum of whatever's going to come out. And when you say, let's talk about let's say one spouse in the relationship, you're going to get one set of information. And when you say, let's talk about that same topic to the other spouse, you're going to get a whole other set of information. And so I love that you're hitting on like the connection points, because yeah, there's usually a decision maker in any partnership, the one that's going to like nix it or say, yes, I think this is a great thing. However, if both aren't along for the ride in the process, it's
Yeah.
not going to work, right? And so
Especially if you get to stay in the house until it sells. There's
yeah,
there's
yeah,
that sabotage factor. Yeah.
yeah, love that. Let's talk about.
Well, one more thing I want to add here, and I think this is imperative, but then as a communication freak, there are behavioral styles. And the reason I bring that up is because when you go in, you may not know what style that person is. If you want to bore me to tears, start showing me a ton of statistics. I want to see the pictures. I want to see the action plans. I want to know what happened when you did the guess what your neighbors did first time mailer. I want to or drop off. The behavioral styles, how you present your information, you need to start advancing your skill set to understand how to present to 4 different behavioral styles. And the reason is because that analytical is going to want to see every piece of content, data, statistics, and slowly, which means I have to give up coffee that day. Okay. The amiable is going to want you to sit down and y'all have some sweet tea and some cookies before we get going, because they are assessing whether or not you have a relationship driven approach to things. The driver's going to want you to get right to the point, that dominant. And so I'm going to say, if you haven't done your own disc lately, go get one. And then look at the action steps behind that to deal with one type of personality in case you're at the opposite end of that, so that you know how best to present that information, and then you adapt from there. So I can't really emphasize that enough, Casey, because I've lost some. Case in point is I had a cul-de-sac. I had brand new. It was in a new area. I had sold every single house except one. And he called me and he said, we want to market our house. We see you've done some work here, but we're talking to other agents, which is always like, right, they're talking to somebody else. And I walked in and it was of a particular, he was a scientist, so there was piles of paper everywhere. And their air conditioning went out in the middle of July. and they had some issues in the bathroom with the mirror. Now, this man was very analytical, so every cent count is what he had to spend. And I'd been known to tell people to move furniture and help them to move that furniture to stage a house. Well, the first thing I was able to do, because I had in my pre-appointment package contacts for an HVAC guy. Now, it wasn't just an HVAC guy. I went to high school with this guy, and I helped him market his business to my farm. And so I was able to pick up the phone and get a favor and say, he goes, we can't put it on the market. And I had buyers waiting for this house. I said, well, what if I could help you with that? May I use your phone? Because, cell phones weren't allowed in those days. And I called Jerry, and Jerry was there in an hour and fixed the air conditioning. I was now on hero pathway. The second thing is he had a mirror and it had worn on the corners. He goes, well, I don't want to have to replace it. I said, you don't have to. We're going to get some mirroring panels around it, and it'll look great for like a third of the money. He gave me 7 referrals. So what I'm saying is you've got to have your support staff. You've got to be able to let them know that if there's an objection, you handle it in a way that serves them. And then the third thing is his style was so slow and deliberate, I had to match that. Make sense?
It does. And then also, I think a really important thing, and this just came up this last weekend because I had my parents out looking at property, is their behavioral styles when they both walked into this house that they both loved, their behavioral styles flipped.
Whoa.
And they flipped because my dad, who's normally the slow analytical, and my mom more of like, I love it, she's quick, let's go for it. Him not resisting every step of the way and moving made her freak out and become resistant and want to slow down. So it's, there's that layer too for understanding behavioral styles, is that they're not hard and fast, and that when the environment changes, how someone's behavior shifts, it can also shift, right? And so from an agent perspective, if it's that mindset again that you talked about of understanding, well, fear drives that kind of behavior, those little fear flags, right? And then what happens now, and navigating through that. So it's that space of giving people to be the space of who they are, and then also space to show up totally differently than they would naturally show up, and then just stay out of that and let them work their way, through, right? It was, my sister was with me and she's like, who are these people and where did our parents go? Right? So, but this is like the business that we're in of real estate, because it's an emotional thing. There's a lot on the line. The relationship is more important than anything else because of, this is one of the biggest purchases and decisions that people make in their lifetime. And in this case, my parents have been in the same house for 46 years that they own free and clear for the last 25
There you
because they
go.
built it, right? So there's so many, as agents, I think, I love what you're saying, because when we become human being experts and understanding the nature of how to connect with people, how to really hear people, how to give them a space to be who they're going to be, notice and pick up all those things that they don't even know that they're doing or throwing out in that moment, and then be that person to walk with them, keeping ourselves out of the way, of that relationship. But like you're talking about, going where the puck's going to be, like the air conditioning's fixed in an hour and a half, and all of a sudden you're on the hero's path because you've just met a need before it was even asked. And like really this presence that you're talking about, and the skill set of refining those skills. I love it. It's so relevant.
Well, it's just like, picture yourself walking into a doctor's office and you go, I've got this thing. And he goes, great. What do you want to do about it? I just had this. And he's like, well, do you want this? I'm like, okay, I'd like to be tall and blonde too, but I don't think you can help me with that. I wanted confidence from this guy and I didn't get it. And like you said, it's not about, oh, you're in this box. You're absolutely right. Thank you for bringing that up, Casey. It's about the graciousness of adapting to how people want to be communicated with. And I'm just saying we're all into, content and data, and yeah, the house is not worth $1 million more than you think. But if you don't want to believe me, if you don't feel like I'm in your court, they're not going to list with you. And listing is a great way to make more money. I mean, the old days, it was you made 3 times the amount of money with a listing because you didn't have as many hours involved in it. So, look at your plan, pump it up, clean it up, look around, get some skill advancement, do your own disc, and then try to determine what one there, and then have your plan. Yeah, you have to show them the marketing plan. I prefer to call my clients on Thursdays at between 3 and 5 with the feedback from previous showings. Does that work for you? No one's going to say that. And then you got to do it. Does that work?
Love it.
We talked about pumping up. Well, and that's just the value proposition to me is so important because think about it. If you pay for something, you want the whole thing. You don't want to pay for part of it. And it's going to take some hand holding. It's going to take some objection handling. And it's not a jujitsu thing. It's about, let's ask for more. What's the real fear here? I mean, it's all about communication. The second part of this was pumping up your prospecting. And I think it was really interesting this morning when Jim said he took 2 of his properties off the market, withdrawn, and no one called him. No one called him. We all assume that somebody's going to jump on it. And I'm going to tell you that there's such a small percentage of people that have organized their day, their week, their prospecting, their daily success habits in a way that actually moves the needle forward. I can't tell you that, there are people that, well, Christy Buck, she had C leads, which are people that are over 120 days out, that finally came around 2.5 to 3 years later, and they came in big. The reason was it was relevant, it was supportive, it was information that she was doing on a consistent basis once a month to update them, to let them know what's happening in the market in the property area that they were thinking about. That if people have expired, why did they expire? Why did they pull it off the market? I mean, these are all sources for prospecting. And the biggest one everybody misses, and I don't know if the other coaches have this issue, is your top 50. People think that that is a solicitive thing. And I know Julie and Bernie don't do that. You don't solicit somebody in your MVPs and go, hey, you want to move? I mean, that's the Italian close. You knock on doors and you're like, you got to move. Let's go. I mean, it's about what can you do to support them with relevant personal information that lets them know you're a resource beyond the real estate transaction. One of the other big prospecting ones is when you have a transaction, I adopt the other side unless they were a Julie or a Casey. They're mine now, and I'm going to follow up with them because I guarantee you the other agent won't do it. So what do you do to adopt the other side? Lots of things. Now they may have been in your sphere of influence. They may have been in your geographical farm. They may have been in an industry that you work with. What are you doing to adopt them? You can ask questions. You can follow up 2 weeks later and say, I know you just bought the Jones house. Is everything working well there? That's a lot of money you're leaving on the table, because if they know 250 people and they're in your past clients, your sphere of influence, what are you doing to consistently touch those people with value, not solicitation? And I was really impressed with Jamie Taylor. Selena, do you remember when Jamie took our top 50 and added not only birthdays per month, but she added sphere of influence, touching them on a regular basis, past clients on a regular basis. She just had a whole process so that she didn't lose it, because as entrepreneurs, we were on the authorship for the 1 Minute Entrepreneur with Ken Blanchard. I interviewed a whole bunch of entrepreneurs, and bless your hearts, you're working so hard on the business, or in the business, you don't work on the business. And on the business is more important than in the business. And so how do you prioritize that time? Well, you can't mitigate or lose the ability to connect with the people who already know, love, and trust you. So I'm going to say, if you want to change your business, that 8351 ebook is free. We're updating how to touch people because I think you need to touch them when they don't expect to be touched. Everybody does, St. Patrick's Day, and guess what? March 13th is National Potato Chip Day. And if you deliver potato chips or ask them what their favorite flavor is, it's silly, but it's personal without being solicitive. So I would say pump up your MVPs, do the apology script like crazy for the people you haven't talked to, past clients. Talk about how you can co-market, co-service with your sphere of it, your strategic partners in a way that is serviceable, right? And by the way, how many birthday cards did y'all get last year? Real ones, not electronic, not dancing bears. Anybody? I spend more money on that than I do makeup, and trust me, I spend a lot on makeup. And the reason is because people want birthdays, and my clients, and I think I've got a couple over here, we don't want them to be business oriented. We just want them to be you. Put your stuff on the back. Mr. State Farm sends me a birthday card, and I know it's not from him. You can do different kinds. You can put in if this particular person does horse farms and horses and horse properties and rural, so that's her thing. And then you put in something. I love what Brooke Sines did. She's one of our coaches. She realized sending a birthday card was nice, but then she decided to put in something special. She put in a scratch off lottery ticket for the adults, and she put in a crisp dollar bill for the kids. Oh my God, has that not worked, Selena? I mean, that was so much fun. And now she's getting a bigger return. And it's not because it's from the realtor, it's because I see, value, and hear you. And if you write that down, seen, value, heard, it's going to change all of your relationships, all of them. Because everybody in this planet, including your dog, wants to be seen, valued, and heard. And that's why they ask you for treats. And that's why they want to cuddle with you. And that's why they look at you when you're walking them and you're on the phone and they're like, it's my time. Seen, value, and heard. Make sense?
It does. And there's, I think, a big thing here because this is one of the topics that is, I would say, rampant in the real estate industry is, just provide value, add value, add value, add value. And
Nobody tells you how.
what you're talking about is I could think it's valuable and the person next to me thinks it's completely invaluable. And the value is determined by the recipient. So I love what you're talking about here, because when you're talking about pumping up your prospecting and it's in this context of connection and relationship, the same that you would to go in and get that listing, is when you know what's of value to someone else and you deliver that to them specifically, that will look different from what it would be for someone else. It is now registered as value when they receive it, versus that State Farm card that everyone's getting in the same way with the same signature, and you're like, yeah, that's valueless, meaningless, right? And so it takes time, it takes consideration, it takes a great tracking system where, like, what are all the things we actually know about our clients or our top 50 or the people that are in our sphere, and those little things that, when can be automated and systematized as we're collecting that information, can be used again and again and again to win again and again and again with those people, accelerate how we build trust, how we position ourselves with the value, because it's valuable based on their definition of what's valuable. And now it's something that Rick talked about all the time. I know you guys talk about at Workman, which is SRO, serve regardless of opportunity.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is serving regardless of the opportunity that's attached to it, because the opportunity is really to invest in and improve the relationship.
Well, I tell you what, if you're here, how many people here have a dog? Show of hands. Dog? Okay, there you go. So you know that people love their dogs more than they love their kids most of the time because they don't ask for anything. I'm just going to tell you that I buy more dog cookies than people who have dogs, and I don't have a dog. In this building, I live in a building with like 4 million people, and I get to meet the dogs, and then I get to meet the people. And I will tell you that when I went in, when I went in the last time to buy dog cookies, the woman said, "You know, you're so good about buying this stuff." She goes, "But you have, how many dogs do you have? Because some you get big cookies and you have little cookies." And then I had to look at her and go, "Well, I don't have a dog." And so she's wondering what I'm doing with these, but I buy a little paw paper and I deliver dog cookies to people because it's in my top 50 that they have a dog. Now be careful that the dog is still alive because they don't live as long as we do. But I just got a phone call from a person who I had sold their home many, many years ago and then sold them. But the dogs were his big thing. And so when I send a happy birthday dog cookie, uh, they like that more than if I sold them if I sent them a car, because the dogs are so important to them. So pets are an important part of that. And if you recognize their pet, if they get a new one, I make sure I get them a little thing with the little dog's name on it. I did Christmas decorations with dogs. And that's the personal romance part that we talked about, Casey. And it's not about buying people things. It's about making them understand that you love what they love. And even if you don't like dogs, do it anyway, because dogs are totally transparent. They either like you or they don't, and there's a reason why. And Alexandra understands that. What kind of dog do you have? Yeah. So when you are congruent with your communication, when you're just authentic, when you've practiced up on your scripts, because we got different objections than we had several years ago, when you present in a way that is an experience, it's not just, oh, the realtor appointment is at 7 o'clock. When you've had an experience before that, it creates a different energy. And I'm just telling you that we have to reinvent the time and the attention to how we approach the business so that people remember you. There's a big differentiator there. And I know your dog is right there, isn't it, Alexandra? Because she's moving over the place. So with the romance, the presentation skills, one of the things that we're doing, right? Oh, there we go. Oh my God, that's huge.
That'd be a
Okay.
big treat.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, well, don't bring up Bubba because he's kind of a biggie too. Yeah, we love dogs. Presentation skills are important. Uh, I just did an analysis of four highly paid people, and their presentation skills in general pretty much needed some opportunities to improve. They sucked. Okay. One of them just read the whole time and stumbled. Can you imagine walking into any kind of buyer or a seller and just stumbling through the whole thing? You don't feel real confident. Another one of them used a whole bunch of acronyms. But what happens to the brain when you throw out an acronym like MGIC or Fannie Mae? They go back in their brain, they don't hear you, and you can't trade what you can't grade. So they can't, if they don't hear you, they've missed it. And then you've missed the opportunity to create confidence and comfort. So you can say something like private mortgage insurance, PMI, and then say, and that's simply this, so that they feel like they're on the journey with you. I'm going to tell you again how you present yourself. We had 3 people in suits, and that was the situation. And then we had one that showed up in gym shoes and baggy pants and a t-shirt that was too tight. Well, where do you think everybody was going? You could see it on their faces. They were like, mm. Now, again, I remember going to California, LA, to help a friend of mine, a big Hollywood person, sell his house. Couldn't understand why he couldn't sell his house. And I walked into the real estate office, and none of the women were wearing suits and hose and heels. Okay, well, in California, you don't do that. In Chicago, you did that with lots of extra makeup. And I was in judgment. The fact is, in Arizona, where it's 110 degrees in the shade, you're not going to wear a 3-piece suit. So be appropriate, even if it's business casual, because don't know the generational dynamic of that group. If they're older, they're going to judge differently than somebody who's a millennial. And your presentation skills, what words are you using that distract or impair their attention? The average attention span right now in a situation, there's literally in 7 seconds, you write a story about me, about anybody you see. You write a story. If they're all tatted up and stuff, that's going to tell you a different story if they look like Darth Vader or Little Mary Sunshine. You write a story because it's other than conscious. And then every interruption causes 23 minutes and 17 seconds. And you can't get back there because your brain has to go all the way back. You have an analog brain. So if you interrupt them with a phone call or a ding on your phone or whatever, you've broken the connection. So your presentation skills probably need to be polished up a little bit. Do you look them in the eye? Do they want to be touched? You don't, I mean, I'm Italian, we touch everything. You work with Koreans, you don't touch. You have to be respectful of how people want to be communicated with. And if you don't know, learn it. I mean, you got the internet, it's everywhere. Ask, attend, get YouTube it, find out something that about how to handle people that are of a different ethnicity. If they take off your shoes, I mean, come on, if I take off my shoes, I get shorter. I don't want to take off my shoes. But if that's what they want, that's what they get. So the romance happens with being personal, but not pandering. How can you be supportive? When you meet someone, what's your process? Do you send a note? I still have mine, by the way, Casey, that had because we went through a time back in the day where everybody was putting glamour shots on. Looking like you were going to prom, I don't think was congruent with the business. So I had a caricature with a little sold sign, and people expected that. And we used it in all of our marketing. A note that says, instead of, hey, it was great to meet you. If I can ever help you with your real estate services. Oh, please settle down. You think I wake up and think of my realtor? I don't. But I tell you what did say, let me know how I can support your business with my sphere of influence. Totally different energy. So write notes. Don't use company stationery unless it's branded on the back. Don't act like you're asking for business. Be of service. Pump it up. Make it personal, but not pandering. And 3, be so good at what you do. Be such an expert. No one would even think about using someone else or worry about the price. Make sense? Anybody have any questions? Nobody has any. I did that well? Seriously?
You're that brilliant. Yes.
No,
Well,
it's
one of the beautiful things
growth.
is this talking about when people have an experience that they like, they want to have more experiences. And everything that you've been talking about is how out of the gate to create an experience from the before they ever meet you in person to the all the way through. It just keeps up leveling and up leveling and up leveling and up leveling. And that's done with thought and intention and attention. So
I like that. So, here's the thing. Have you, if I lost a listing, there's a listing I've lost to this day that makes me crazy because I don't know why. And one of the things that I would do is if someone chose another agent, I would say to them, congratulations. After this is over, I'd like to know if there's something I could have done differently or after it's sold. And here's the thing, we only learn from where the gaps are. And you can think you're just terrific and somebody else thinks you missed the mark completely. And you just need to be aware that it's like, oh, I didn't realize that was a landmine. We talk about landmines or where people like, right, that they didn't like something. Just be careful because not everybody has this computer in their head. They have their own programs and it looks like Windows, but it's a totally different kind of Windows. So if you can pay attention, that is the most seductive thing. And I'm saying that on purpose. It's the most seductive thing you can do is give attention. Don't get creepy, but give people attention because that's what they're craving in this marketplace.
I love that. So of any of the topics that we covered today, which, the first one was like, how do you spiff up the business and be relevant with your clients in 2025? It's not the same market really and business that it was prior to pumping up prospecting or adding this romance level. If there was places that you'd like to dig in deeper or explore further, what would that be for anyone? You can come off mute and just ask.
Yeah, it's a safe place. Trust me. Well, these people are all really good. Oh, I was hoping you'd say something, Donald.
Terry, I'm totally curious. Like one of the things I think that you do well and I'm impressed with is like before someone knows you, right? Like how do you, you know, how do you soften up that target? I mean, I'm sorry, that's my Marine Corps background, right? But how do you like before the meeting and before someone knows you, like how do you sprinkle like that magic dust around that person? What are like a couple of tips that you do? I don't know if it's phone call, like I don't love social media. I just don't think it's that wonderful. But like before you actually engage
Think
a
there.
brand new person, how do they get to know you and how do you soften that up?
Well, but we talked about this a little bit. Research to me is important. I do take the internet and look if I can find them on social media, see what they like, see if they have dogs, if they have kids, if they rent kids, whatever they're doing. If it's a listing presentation, that pre-appointment package gets there before I do. I have it delivered. If you have some kind of kitschy thing that it works as like Washington State, they'll use apples. I mean, we used Apple because it was Applegate. Um, Something that just sets you apart, that says I'm intentional about this. A phone call works. I like to confirm. I used to we would trade this off because we couldn't afford admins at the time, but I would have one of my co-agents call and say, hey, Donald, just want to confirm that Terry's going to be there at 7 o'clock tonight. Is there anything you need from us before we get there? I mean, it's connection. It's connection. And then the follow-up. Is there anything we missed? Is there something we could have done differently that would have solved this problem? I mean, here's the thing. Everybody, if you're a little kids will come up to you anywhere and go, hi, right? And if you're an adult, you can't do that because they think you're weird. So we have a fear as humans to be rejected or to be considered weird. And I practice, how can I connect? How many of y'all have been in an elevator where everybody's like, right? Oh no, that's not going to happen if I'm in that elevator. Now, not everybody's a high I. Rick, on the other hand, we wanted to switch him to decaf on a regular basis. Yeah, I'm not saying not be you, but I'm just saying open your heart. Um, think about how you would like to be treated. And Donald, I mean, you're not, people might have an issue if you're not approachable. I continue to say that blonde people have a better advantage than people that are dressed like Darth Vader, which my normal uniform is black. We're learning that that has a big determination about how people accept or not. I would just say be as open. And, if people are cranky pants, uh, they have a reason for it, and it may not have anything to do with you. So if they think you're being pandering, I mean, calling somebody and saying, I'm really excited to be looking forward to is 7 o'clock still a good time? Or, check it out on social media. So you have some kind of semblance. Oh, you went to, UT. Oh, so did we, that kind of thing. That is not fake. It's, to me, graciousness to let you know this is a safe place. And if you don't want to use this, it's okay. But I'm here to do the best job that I can for the people I work with. And testament to that is this guy that called me right out of the blue 40 some years later to say, we're just walking down the street here in Lake Forest, and we're just so happy that you sold us this. So I'm like, I'm almost dead. Okay. That was a long time ago. But he's so happy, and he just felt the need to call me and tell me that. And I'm thinking, well, that's good. That means I did something good. And so you may have to have some leverage with other people that may have used you. You might say something, Selena recommended that we connect today. I just make it comfortable. We tend to want to dump everything that's good about us on there so we're accepted. And I'm saying, let them ask what's good. I think Casey just did a great job on that. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, it does. I think one of the challenges that I've seen emerge over the last few years is that it just seems like you had mentioned earlier in this call, it's like the attention span of the average person is pretty dang small. And there's just such a group of, I'll call them professionals out there that will captivate attention by, like setting their hair on fire, like doing something extraordinarily odd, right, to captivate attention. And like the ultimate expression of this is social media, right? Because you can put out the most intelligent social media piece on the planet and no one sees it, right? But if you put a picture of your dog eating pizza, for God's sakes, you're going to have 10,000 million people, but your messaging's totally irrelevant at that point, right? And so I guess one of the things I've struggled with is like, how do you take that first 5 seconds, right, and do something with it that's not like a bad game show?
Well, social media can't be measured. I mean, but they will judge you from your social media. So be very careful about what you post. And posting just content and statistics, storytelling is huge. The story about door to door with the apples is something you'll remember. If I told you I sold 110 homes, blah, 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 that's just another irrelevant. So I think you're on first of all, you're aware of it, which is really good. And secondly, even just sending a note that says, I know we're meeting in a week and a half, but if there's any questions that come up, feel free. Here's how to reach me. And give them the options. I mean, because if they only communicate through Instagram, you need to do that. You know what I'm saying? Um, I think when you relax and speak confidently, here's the thing, kids. It's not like a bad sandwich. It's not like a bad lunch you send back. When they choose an agent, they put a gauntlet in the ground, and you've got to live up to that, because in general, we don't have the greatest reputation, and yet we handle the most precious thing is where they live their lives. And so they've got to feel really confident that you've got their back. And you do that by integrity, and integrity is done by how you present yourself, how you're consistent with that, and what your values are. And I want to tell you, if you're new, where is Martin? You have to judge them as much as they judge you. So I know that sounds self-serving, but if I don't think I can work with someone, I tell them I think you're going to have a better fit with a different type of marketing. Because at the end of the day, the ones that were terrible, you never forget. Any more questions that I can help? Thoughts?
Well,
Andy?
I love what you guys just jumped into, just as we're segueing and whoever's next is coming off mute, is this idea that business travels at the speed of trust and go slow to go fast. So go slow, maybe I'm writing a handwritten note or I'm taking the time to call ahead and confirm. But those are the things that are establishing trust and credibility and brand before they ever get the actual experience of you. And so I think it's counterintuitive a lot of times for agents, because it's, the business can be crazy and we're running from one thing to the next. And it's like, a fire sale. But that idea, what you're talking about is that go slow to go fast concept, so that business had, it can travel that speed of trust, it will travel at, and you're establishing that in those ways before, during, after, ongoing.
That before piece, Donald, is important as well, because when you're asking enough questions without sounding like you're interrogating them, tell me about the families, dogs, kids, yard, not yard. I mean, get that info up front. And the reason is because it gives them a way to connect with you. If you have a big dog like Alexandra and they have a little bitty dog, you want to know that before you bring a cookie the size of a small country, that kind of thing.
So we have somebody that would like you to elaborate on the apology script.
Oh man, that's when I drop the ball. It's like, oh my God, hey, Julie, you're really good at this, because you throw in Juliisms, which we so appreciate. They're very heavily sauced from the South. But I dropped the ball. I drove past your house the other day. It's been 2 years. Dear God, look what you did with the outside. It's really great. Or you know what? I was just thinking about you, and I didn't follow up. I hope you'll forgive me. I never followed up to see if there's something else you might need. Or I've got this great referral guide I'm putting together. It's all the 9s and 10s ratings from all the service people that my MVPs have. And I'm willing to share it with you in case you need like a plumber or something, because they all graded them. So it must be good stuff. Would that be helpful for you? I'm updating my records. We're doing a client appreciation party. I know it's been 3 years or 7 years or 200 years, but I'd love to see you. And if you can make it, that'd be great. that help? We actually have an apology script in writing somewhere, don't we? Oh, Selena has it. Look at that. I want to be on her side all the time.
She's like the live AI.
She's and attractive, which is annoying, you know. Okay, well, I have to tell you, this was more fun for me than it was for you because I loved listing. And even though, and then becoming a coach has helped me help others because I can tell you all day long to eat broccoli and exercise and meditate. That doesn't mean you're going to do it. But when you see the results of how people call you 30 some years later and go, oh my God, we're so happy in our house. I'm like, you're so bad for business. Will you move? I mean, it just makes you know that you've changed someone's life. And this is an important thing that we do. Because people don't buy and sell a house every day. And you're there in the trenches. You have all this information. All I'm saying is make yourself the best realtor. Back in the 100 years ago when I had my little 3x5 cards with my goals, I said, I want to be the best realtor. And I don't know what that meant then, but I overachieved on wanting to not have somebody buy their home in the water and without heat in Wisconsin, like I did.
I love that. And I think, Terri, what I can say in everything that you've shared and the fact that of the pile of evidence that you've created, the track record, the impact with clients and the industry over the last 30 years, is that one thing that has stayed true about you is aspects that Rick would always talk about, which is being hungry, humble, smart, and coachable.
Oh, yeah.
That mindset of I haven't arrived, I'm not finished, I'm a continual work in progress and looking to continue to better whatever your best is, even at this stage in your career. I know that's something that you're really diligent about, and that mindset also of turn around and give it away for the people that are on their own journey coming up through whatever areas that they're at in their career. And so I know that you have a passion for coaching and helping people in any aspect, whether that's on the client side, the consumer side, the agent side, in helping them get what they want. And you practice what
Every
you
day.
yeah, and you're in the trenches doing that. So I think you're an incredible example of that, and want to thank you so much for your time and contribution to the real estate community today. And got lots of notes that are coming through and texts that are pinging on my phone about what a great call this was. You'll all be able to catch the recording if you want to go back and get it because the coffee accelerated the message. No, it didn't really. But if there's things that you want to go back and pick up, you'll find them on the recording. We'll look forward to having you our next Free Friday coaching call. Again, that's first and third Fridays of every month. And we'll look forward to having you back on another topic at some point in the future, Terri.
Molto piacere, which sounds like multi-pick-a-cherry. Molto piacere. The pleasure was all mine. And thank you. I think I'm going to be on these because there's such cool people on these calls.
We do have really cool people on these calls, people that want to learn and grow. All right, make it a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Grazie mille.
Yeah, grazie mille.
Thank you, darling.